Dear students of class 10A and 10B, I am going to re-explain the points about the United Nations. The United Nations, was established at the time when the world leaders felt that another international political organization should be established which would work more perfectly, more effectively with the help of all the member states. Because the League of Nations, which was established at the end of the First World War, failed to achieve its goal. That's why it also failed to stop another world war. The Second World War took place. So the Second World War, which gave a great blow in the history of humanity, another international political organization was inevitable to the countries of the world for protecting the countries from being attacked by each other. That's why the United Nations organization was established. Now, what are the main objectives of the United Nations? There are many objectives of the United Nations. But what are the main objectives? There are some main objectives of the United Nations. The objectives like to secure international peace, and safeguard the future generation from the disastrous war disastrous war. That means to secure international peace, international understanding, international cooperation of each other, and to safeguard future generation from the disastrous effect of the war. And second one, to create faith and respect for human rights and self-determination of people. And third one, to harmonize the actions of nations in order to achieve its aims. And last one, to develop friendly relations among the nations and to achieve international cooperation, international understanding in solving problems like social, economic, cultural, and humanitarian characters. So these are the main objectives of the United Nations, my dear students. Next point, organs of the United Nations. How many organs are there? There are some organs of the United Nations. How many organs? There are some organs of the United Nations. These are the General Assembly, the Security Council, the International Court of Justice, the Economic and Social Council, the Trusteeship Council, and the Secretariat. These are the 6 principal organs of the United Nations organization. These are the 6 principal organs work steadily for protecting the country, for protecting the world, for protecting the environment, and for protecting the lives and properties of the earth, and to establish friendly relations among ourselves. These chief organs were established under the United Nations. Now, next point, the General Assembly. Out of these 6 organs of the United Nations, General Assembly is one of the most important organs of the United Nations. Now, what are the functions? General Assembly is powers and functions. What are the powers and functions of the General Assembly? Now I am going to discuss powers and functions of the General Assembly. The General Assembly has many. Today I shall not discuss about the composition, but I should discuss the composition also, because it is also a part of our syllabus. The composition of the General Assembly. What is the composition of the General Assembly? You know, all members of the United Nations are the members of the General Assembly. And each state has 5 representatives in the General Assembly. But each state has only one vote. General Assembly has its regular session, begins each year on the 3rd Tuesday in September and continues usually until the 3rd week of December. And it is General Assembly means at the start of each regular session, the Assembly elects a new president, 21 vice presidents, and the chairman of the Assembly's 6 main committees. Because of solving international problems, disputes of different parts of the world, to ensure, equitable geographical understanding, geographical representation, and the presidency of the Assembly rotates each year among the 5 groups of states like Africa, Asia, Eastern Europe, Latin America, and Caribbean, and Western Europe and other states. Now why? Because of the decisions which are very important to take in consultation with various states of the world. They come to a conclusion what to do and what not to do. And these matters include the elections of non-permanent members. That's why the elections are held, free elections are held. The process by which the elections are held, they maintain a process of free and fair elections, so that each and every country can be treated equally by the member states. And next point, some powers. What are the powers? Powers and functions of the General Assembly. The General Assembly has some powers and functions. Number 1, General Assembly, it discusses any question relating to international peace and understanding. Whenever any matter arises, regarding the crisis of the world, whenever a very small country is hated by a very powerful one, whenever the independent rights of the citizens of a country is violated, whenever whenever the sovereignty and integration of a country is threatened by another one, and the problems usually come to be solved by the General Assembly. The General Assembly can suggest some important ideas so as to make the problems solved at an early stage. Besides, General Assembly discuss any type of questions relating to international peace and security. It can do it. And it also make a recommendation on the principles of cooperation in the maintenance of international peace and understanding and security, to make recommendation for the peaceful settlement or disputes, to receive, consider reports from the Security Council. Sometimes some reports are sent to the General Assembly to consider by the Security Council. So General Assembly sometimes in consultation with the Security Council can solve certain problems. But the problems which are solved by the General Assembly, generally Security Council does not interfere it, and the problems which are solved by the Security Council, the suggestions, whatever is done by the Security Council, General Assembly does not interfere it, because relationship between the two chief organs of the United Nations, the General Assembly and the Security Council, is very healthy and negotiable. That's why they have equal respect for each other. These two organs have equal respect for each other, and they work, they work peacefully, and they work simultaneously. They work together with a view to solve the international problems, solve problems related to humanitarian ground. That's why the aims and objectives of these two organs of the United Nations are same. And besides, other United Nations organizations has another functions. The General Assembly also has another functions. It is supposed to discuss and consider matters related to international peace and security, as I mentioned, and it is also supposed to consider and approve the budget of the UNO. This is the one of the most important functions of the General Assembly. It approves the budget of the UNO and other agencies and the ways of meeting its experience expenses through contribution of member nations. So these are the most important functions of the General Assembly. And now another thing is that the importance of the General Assembly. Why is General Assembly important? Why is General Assembly is an important organ of the United Nations? Now I am going to discuss. General Assembly is an important organ of the United Nations because is the main declaration of the General Assembly. General Assembly is the main declaration organ of the United Nations. It carries out the election of the non-permanent members of the Security Council. At the same time, the election of new members of the UN, the suspension of members, decides the budget and makes other recommendations for the maintenance of international peace and understanding. And the decisions which are taken by a 2/3 majority of the Assembly, whereas decisions on other less important issues are made by a simple majority. These all are the works done by the General Assembly. That's why as an organ of the United Nations, General Assembly plays an important role, and that's why General Assembly is a very important organ of the United Nations. Now another thing is that General Assembly, is important in a sense. It solved the disputes. It solved the disputes related to the problems based on humanitarian problems. The problems which are considered as humanitarian problems, and people usually face a lot of problems because of lack of good infrastructure of their countries, because of dependence. Country has become independent, but still there is no improvement due to lack of fund, due to lack of good project, due to lack of cooperation of other states. That's why some countries, and besides a lot of internal problems, internal crisis, which should be immediately solved, but they are unable to get it solved because of their non-cooperative attitudes, because of problems, because of some problems. They cannot get it solved. It cannot be solved by a person. It cannot be solved by a government, because government has huge pressure. Government has huge problems which are to be solved. But due to these reasons, some countries of the world sometimes fail to solve their problems, their internal crisis, and in that case, it is General Assembly generally solve their problems by means of good policies framed by this organ, But sometimes General Assembly is supposed to consult the Security Council. The Security Council suggests some ideas so as to solve the problems of the weak countries of the world who are totally lagging behind. That's why this organ, as an important organ of the United Nations, uh, you know, uh, makes many important works in the interest of the people, in the interest of the countries of the world, and in the interest of solving international problem, internal problem of different countries, humanitarian problems of different countries, social, political, cultural problems of different countries of the world. Up to this, my dear students, thank you.